So you won the arbitration. Collecting may be another story. You've been through the whole process. You filed, you argued, you sat through the hearings. At the end of it, a tribunal ruled an arbitration award in your favor. You now have an arbitration award. That should be the end of it, right? But that's not how the law works. In the UAE and every other country, in a lot of jurisdictions, in fact, what you need to do is you need to enforce the award. So getting the award is just the beginning of the process to enforce it, to be able to get the justice that you've been fighting for. The piece of paper you have says you're either owed money, you should be receiving that money, and the two things are very different. And you do need to take some steps to make sure that if you're working in commercial, cross-border disputes, or anything that has any arbitration clauses in it, the gap between arbitration clauses sometimes that I see are super bad, and therefore it's really important to have the right arbitration clause and then pursue the arbitration in the right manner. So let's start with the foundation of all of this. The UAE's primary piece of legislation here is Federal Law number 6 of 2018, which is the Federal Arbitration Law. And under Article 52 of that law, an arbitration award carries the same binding force as a court judgment, and it's meant to be treated exactly that way. It has the same exact authority, or what we call res judicata, which essentially means that the matter has been decided and you cannot fight about it again. It cannot be re-litigated. This is a really important point. It cannot be re-litigated. But this is an important part, that self-executing quality doesn't mean that the money just automatically appears. Enforcement requires a court to formally confirm the award before any execution process can begin. So you are perhaps back in front of the judge even after winning before an arbitration tribunal. Now, typically what happens is for domestic awards, the process runs through the UAE Court of Appeal. For foreign awards, meaning awards that are made outside the UAE, the courts rely heavily on what we call the New York Convention, something you would hear a lot. It's the 1958 Convention on the Recognition and Enforcement of Foreign Arbitral Awards, to which the UAE is a signatory. The UAE courts have in recent times generally applied the New York Convention when enforcing consistently arbitration awards, and generally the challenges around these things are supposed to be very limited to very specific grounds listed under Article 5 of the Convention. That is basically things like against public policy, or things that are impacting or illegal under the law of the land, etc., where it's to be enforced. So generally, where you have a structured legal framework and there are legally defined grounds, the UAE court or any other court must enforce an arbitration award that comes in. Article 53 of our arbitration law sets out any of these additions and the grounds in the New York Convention that would generally apply. So if there is no valid arbitration agreement, or the arbitration clause that I keep talking about needs to be properly drafted, is void or expired, or signed by someone without legal authority to bind the company, etc., those could be roadblocks where the entire award can be challenged. So you always need to make sure that, and there is a lot of case history in the UAE and case history elsewhere on arbitration awards and what we call technicalities or legal issues where they could be refused. And the other thing to bear in mind is we always try to do a sanity check on the opposition or the party that we're opposing, because if the party has really what we call is a man of straw or doesn't have any assets to enforce against, then obviously you can have the greatest arbitration award in the world, but you won't be able to enforce it against someone who has no money to pay you under the situation. So that's my take on arbitration. Thank you so much for watching Think Tank this week, and I hope it's been useful for those of you who've had to go through an unfortunate process of being in front of a tribunal and getting an arbitration award. I think we always try to make sure we can settle difficult cases, but sometimes the law, the courts, or arbitral tribunals are the only way forward, and that's just sometimes how things pan out. Thank you again for watching Think Tank.